Dr James Morton, my special guest in the studio for My City, My Story. James has done an amazing thing by starting the AEIOU Foundation, and that's what we're talking about. It provides effective early intervention treatment for children touched by autism. James, when you're not working, which I assume is most of the time, what do you like to do? Do you get much downtime?
Yeah, I'm a sporting nut.
Yeah.
We were talking about birthdays a minute ago. Unfortunately, with age, sporting careers get curtailed severely. But I like to hike, and my daughter is an enormous Broncos fan, as am I, so we love our football. And my youngest son, 9, has become a cricket nut this year. So I had this funny muscle strain the other day on my ribs on the right side, and it occurred to me all of a sudden it's because he's asked me to bowl so many balls to him, and I'm using muscles that I haven't used in years. So, I like my sport basically, and we do like other families. We go to the movies and dinner and all that sort of thing. But yeah, our life is very busy. We do a lot of fundraising for AEIOU. It's unfortunately, it's an area where, whilst there has been, and I mentioned what Warren and Anastasia have done, while there has been significant government investment compared with 2002, it still remains quite weird to me as a doctor who works in the health sector how poorly programs for young children with a disability are funded. And I look at the cost of some of the drugs we use for cancer, and often in quite elderly people where it gives them a few months survival, where we'll spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to provide that benefit. But as a country, we won't invest the same amount in a 3-year-old. And I can't understand that. It's just, it's an illogical use of money, because there is... The thing about these little kids that is, if you spend the money, you change their trajectory through life. And what we're seeing is about 3/4 of our children are going to school now. Whereas if you look at their, for want of a better word, IQ scores when they enter our program, we would only expect about a quarter to do so.
That's amazing, isn't it?
If you see that change, and then those children go through school, and the education system is an area where we're now becoming increasingly involved with trying to improve what happens in the education system for these children. But if you can see them through that system and they get a job and become an independent person, the cost savings are phenomenal. We did a study in 2007 which looked at the cost of autism to the Australian community, and it was $7 billion a year. That's 1% of gross domestic product. So it's a huge issue. Yeah. Now, the government made a big deal out of spending $116 million over 4 years on early intervention, but the federal funding at the moment is $6,000 a year for programs. The government's got best practice guidelines, and I don't know any other issue in health or alike where the government has best practice guidelines and they fund 1/7 of it. And families are meant to fund the rest, or find the money somehow, or simply not receive the level of services that their children need. The fact is, though, for every dollar spent, there's a lifetime cost saving to the community of $15. So there's a return. There's actually a social investment here with a very positive outcome, and government doesn't invest properly in this area. Sorry to get on my
No, that's okay. I'm assuming that that's what you spent 45 minutes chewing the ear of then Prime Minister Kevin Rudd about. Tell us about that.
So
you purchased a block of time with the Prime Minister.
It's the best investment I've ever made. So I have a very close friend at the Broncos, and Kevin Rudd was their number one ticket holder, and he donated his time, donated an hour's time that they auctioned. And I couldn't go to the auction, but Louise bid on my behalf. And we ended up paying $13,000 to get that hour's time. And he came and visited our Bray Park Centre. And we didn't really get much grip on the actual overall funding, but there was a project that we needed to do on the Sunshine Coast. And we talked to him about this project, and he was really engaged with it. And pointed us to the Jobs Fund, and we applied to the Jobs Fund for the money to do the project, and the Jobs Fund knocked us back. And I rang Alistair Jordan, who was then his chief of staff, and pointed this out, and buttons got pushed, and we got the funding for this project. And what we're doing at the Sunshine Coast University is building a unique childcare centre, and the federal government's given us $1.8 million to build this centre. And it will be a centre for 75 children. It will be interlinked with the university, with their education program. It will have a cutting-edge early childhood program. We're calling the centre Uni Kids, but we'll have 15 autistic children there with very high staffing, and we're going to deliver an integrated program for those children.
Great.
So our current centres have been standalone, and one of the challenges these kids face is around social behaviour. And the idea is that if we can produce similar outcomes in this centre that we can with our standalone centres, you get the bonus that these kids have modelling opportunities with mainstream kids. And in fact, there's some work from Canada that the mainstream kids can actually become part of the therapy outcome. So they can actually take under their arm, if you like, the little child with autism. Now, one of the things that kids with autism face when they go to school is bullying.
Oh, of course.
So if you actually have a generation of children that they grow up with through childcare and then they go to school with, you'll also deal with that bullying problem. Our little bloke Andy goes to Sunnybank Hills, which has been the most wonderful school for him. And I'm just amazed. Andy's not the easiest kid at times, and he doesn't have too much vision around, very self-centred. My wife says he gets that from me. But the other children there are just so lovely to him. And other little kids can be so wonderful for kids who are different if they don't have inbuilt attitudes about differies and if bullying's avoided. And
so true.
Sunnybank Hills has managed this really beautifully with Andy, and my heart goes out to those other little kids and the way the Christmas cards he got. He doesn't deserve them, but they were just brilliant. And Andy has this thing about Toy Story, and one boy wrote, I can't remember the words of the cards, but it was to do with Buzz Lightyear and what he says about, to infinity
and beyond.
And Andy, keep flying, and that's from a 9-year-old kid. It was the most extraordinary card that he got. And as I said, Andy doesn't deserve it for the way he behaves. But I think the teachers there have, and the teacher aides there have been so supportive of him that he's now spending most of his time in mainstream with the children there. And so that was what the Kevin Rudd thing was, and the state government matched the funding, which has allowed us to hire the teacher aides, the specialist teachers, and Extrata. We went to Extrata, and they gave us the money to attract from the United States a lady called Laurie Sperry, who's probably a unique person around the world in developing integrated programs. She's developed integrated programs everywhere, and that's just being built now. So that's a very exciting project.
James,
for us.
I'm not in any way surprised that you were awarded the Lord Mayor's Australia Day Citizen of the Year this year. You've also been given the Suncorp Community Queenslander last year, and you were recognised as the Ernst & Young Australian Social Entrepreneur in 2010 as well. Accolades must be nice.
The Ernst & Young thing I was really tickled about, because the Ernst & Young thing, we were nominated in Queensland, but then we had to go in a national final. And in that process, you're interviewed by 9 leading business people, and we're talking about Alan Moss, who used to run Macquarie Bank, and Greg Roebuck from carsales.com, etc. And they really go over your business as well and look at what you're doing. And the feedback I got was amazing. And so I take a lot out of that. The awards are actually great for our staff. I mean, I know it comes to me, but it's very good for profile, and it's saying to our staff, what you're doing here is very special, because I don't do the programming and I don't set up the program. I have an idea and then get other people do all the hard work.
You're an ideas man.
Yeah, and we would have nothing if it wasn't for the people who are working with these kids. And I look at the program when we were complete gumbies when we set this up in 2005. It was an idea, but the people who have then come to that idea, and our senior staff and our teacher aides and all that sort of thing who actually do the work, the evolution of the program over those 5 years is breathtaking. And goodness knows what Andy would be like if this program had been there in 2002, to be honest, because it's such a good program that these kids.
And Brisbane's a great town. We are supportive. We are very, very supportive as a community.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, we have to raise a lot of money to keep the doors open, and we do that because particularly the business community in Brisbane has really got behind this project, but also everyday people have supported it as well. James,
it's terrific to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming in. If you want to find out more about the AEIOU Foundation, you can go to their website, which is just aeiou.org.au. And have you got any fundraising things coming up? What are your big plans for this year, James?
So the next thing is a beer drinking night, which I have a feeling you're coming to.
Yes, well, you know what, I think I might have to make myself come along to the beer drinking night.
We have a beer professor who's going to be there telling us all about beer, so that's in about 2 weeks' time. In April, we do an event called Paddle for Kids on the Brisbane River, where people can enter a team, and there are teams of 4, and then they get sponsors to support them, and they race up and down the river in their teams of 4. Alex Perry, I think, is in June. Alex is a charity ambassador, and Alex brings his latest fashion thing. Yeah, so
he's a great
Alex is, how could he not be with that as a first name?
But, everyone called Alex is fantastic.
But Alex is quite amazing with these children. He comes out the centre, and you see Alex is one of these people who is innately really good with autistic children. If I can just tell you one story. We had a little Greek girl in our program who had fairly severe autism, and Alex met her at one of our centres when he came out just doing some promo work before one of his parades a couple of years ago. Anyway, unbeknownst to anyone, at his charity parade that year, the family brought the daughter along, and at the end of the thing, they popped her up on the end of the catwalk, and she saw Alex in the distance and ran her down the catwalk and jumped into his arms. It was quite the most extraordinary thing. And this year, I think it's in June, his event, and it's a really glam night. And that's going to be at the Gold Coast this year, because our big project for this year is to construct a centre at the Gold Coast. And then we've got Take a Hike coming up in October, which is 40 Ks carrying a pack. And last year, one of the fellows auctioned what he would wear for the hike and did the whole thing in a mankini. So goodness knows what he'll top it up with next.
Oh, my God. That's terrifying and yet innovative, and probably raised a whole heap of money.
Stuart raised $20,000 altogether, and he got $2,500 for the mankini. And I can tell you, walking through South Bank next to Stuart with his mankini on, and I would look at the eyes of the people as they walked past, and you would see their eyes bulge. It was quite hilarious.
Oh, James, well, congratulations on all the amazing work that you're doing, because you are changing lives. You are improving the quality of lives of young people with an autism disorder, and also the families of those people. So keep up the wonderful work that you're doing. And as I said, that website, if you want to find out more, is AEIOU.org.au. My special guest for My City, My Story, Dr James Morton. Thanks, James.
Thank you very much.
Call Alex anytime, 13 13 32 on Brisbane's own 1116 4BC.